Are we destined to live a life ruled by fantasy? A life where our dreams, our hopes, our stories are outsourced to a realm of our own canon, one whomst can only be shared in community through fractured visions and maligned reality? Are our lives outsourced to a simulation? Does the proverbial boot taste good when your tongue feels the grit of its dirt on the smooth plush leather? Do you believe their claims when they say the satisfaction of your defeat is earned and not given? Are the stories of our heroes not worthy of being told? Or is it the nature of a silicone virus to capitalize on our art, to bear the fruits of our own labor, to tell a manufactured representation of a reality that serves none of us but the ones who claim to have suffered in our place? They feed on our flesh and laugh in our despair. Their creation is our destruction, the ends of hopes and the beginnings of nothing. What stories are worth being told? Fantasy is fascinating. It allows you to live out the stories that could never happen, to no longer be affected by time and reason. Here, in this version of it, I can be whoever I want, can take the heroes I wish to envision and place them together to see their stories of hardship come true. In a year, 2, 5, the story is still interesting. A story that isn't defined by our perception of the reality, but only the story in which is told in its time. It's not like most of my stories, most of which are meant for the starving, for the ones who feel the darkest and the vision of the future being the dimmest, whom have suffered through the history to observe their reality as is in a time. But as time passes, the story no longer seems to fit the narrative that they need to be told. People change. Characters move on, and it's difficult to observe a story told when your immersion of this reality cannot possibly be aligned with your perception of the truth. In 2024, I believe I told my best story. A narrative about a singular hero going on to capture the hearts of a maligned city. A city who had lost all of its heroes, who never got to see the bright lights at the end of the tunnel. Yet, through it all, persevered to believe that another hero would come for them. We told the story of that city's triumph and that hero's personal triumph. To this day, it's one of my favorite moments I've recorded. But time has passed. Defeat and failure looms on. And this story, and its fantasy, no longer seem to satisfy the masses. I wish it did. But that's a fantasy of my own. Many storytellers understand this. The best of them truly do. But I dream of using our history to tell a better story, to feel the feelings that the past provided, to examine how its adventure tells the story of our own humanity. A story like When the Rain Fell, and a people cursed by suffering for a century finally sought the light at the end of the tunnel. In its brightness, cured a poison that had punished for lifetimes. The joy not of the characters in the story, but the ones in the exterior, the ones who lived it. None feels better. Or perhaps the most famous story of all, where a team of underdogs and nobodies, built through innovation and intelligent strategy, outsmarted the same greed that we suffer from today, even if they never truly reached the mountaintop. We know much of it to be false. But narratives get to ignore the ugly truths and tell the most fascinating elements of a journey. However, at the end of the day, they were also plucked to their deaths, removed from their homes and taken from them by the same victors that hold the knives to our very own throats today. I'm angry. I'm angry at it all. They play by rules that apply to only them, and they force us to watch as they feel the joy that we suffered for and earned. And in their wake, they leave bootprints of ash where the embers of our stories had existed, where our dreams lie and never woke. Yet, I do not blame the characters in these stories. To them, this game is a minor chapter in the story of their lineage, a means to a life of prosperity and joy for them and all they love. They need not prescribe to our pain. But I do blame the shareholders, the ones who claim our characters for their own, to the ignorance of the stories that they once told. Does the tragedy of the 2020 Rays feel the same, now that the victim wears his oppressor's colors to bludgeon the other rebellions to their reign? Does the sweet victory of the 2019 Nationals feel bitter, now that their heroes wear the colors of their rivals, knowing that they will always be destined to be a flash in the pan, rather than a heroic memory for a fandom whom will likely never see the same level of success? They take, and they take, and they take. The only giving that they do is the promise to take again. They force us to change, to innovate, to create, to imagine, to devise schemes to better ourselves, to become the proper versions of ourselves that we sought out to become, that we can feel pride in. And then they feast on the corpse of our own well-being. But they are a virus, a parasite that have been trying to turn you against yourself, to turn your vitriol inwards, while they sit atop their golden thrones and plunder you for everything you have. They try to convince you that it's your fault, that if only you would change to play by their rules, the rules of a game that they created, that they intend on never losing, that maybe you could see the same spoils that they have. But you have no control over this. You cannot amass the control and the power that they have, not on your own and never by yourself. They laugh at you. They do not think of you. Even if they believe that you pose a threat, they will take your weapons and blame you for being unarmed. When was I radicalized? When I watched our heroes stake their claims, prophecies in place to finally bring joy to a franchise of suffering, where a hero stood up and put everything on the line to break a curse, to honor a people who knew nothing but failure, and he succeeded at breaking that curse. A promise of success was to come, but he was taken. The city who knew nothing but greed claimed the success that we harbored, and got to the mountaintop whilst we fell again, and to this day, they believe that their story was a surprise. But most importantly, when the one who was promised, who was to become our king, a hero of folklore-like nature, a humble prince whom embodied everything that we were, was taken from us as well. My hero, my king, a prophecy that could never be told because we were never given a chance. And I continued to watch from afar, hoping he would be able to return as a hero to us again, only to end in heartbreak. Heartbreak. Over and over and over and over again. That's what fandom is. It's what this life is. When the top of the mountain is near, you will fall. You always fall. But you get back up and you try again. They don't get it. They never fall. They stumble. And when they do, they find somebody weaker to pick on, to blame and steal from, to take from and find their success. They're a robbery of joy, not from themselves, but from the world itself. Stories are meant to be told. Good stories bring joy to all. But stories are stuck in a fantasy right now, until we do something different. Thank you for watching. It's 2026, and while this is definitely something different for my channel, for what I'm used to creating, its sentiments will be continued through this year, and I'm attempting to innovate, to get better, to be better for you. You know what? Be obsessed with stories. Listen and live them. We see what's happening, and it's hard to have hope. I don't want all this to be a fantasy. I want to tell the stories of our teams, of our history, to be interested and let you see the dreams you want to come true happen this year. Even if so much of it seems destined to be doomed by the Dodgers and the Mets. But also don't fail to watch the old stuff. Teams change, players change, but I think the merits of the stories will always be captivating. Also, because if you don't go back and watch the White Sox video from 2025, then you'll never be able to understand that half of our talks about, like, Alexis Trujillo, who is always going to be on the forefront of our mind. You won't get any of the references. Anyways, I'll be getting back to work on other videos before MLB 26's release, and when that does come out, you know I'll be going hard as ever. Thank you guys very much for supporting me thus far. I know there have been tough times in the winters. Let's have a great 2026. Adios.